So, if you've ever worked with data in Python, you know that for the last decade, one library has absolutely ruled the kingdom: Pandas. But there's a new challenger, Polars, and it's promising some serious speed with a much more modern design. So, let's dive into this battle for the data throne. And that's the big question on everyone's mind, right? Is it really time to ditch the tool we all know and love for this new flashy competitor, or is the story a little more nuanced than that? Well, we're going to break it all down. All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the undisputed king, Pandas. Then we'll look at where it starts to hit a wall. We'll see how Pandas itself is evolving with version 2.0, and then we'll meet the challenger, Polars. And finally, the most important part, figuring out which tool you should actually be using. Okay, first things first. Let's talk about the giant in the room. For years, for what feels like forever, when you said data analysis in Python, what you really meant was Pandas. You see, Pandas gave us the data frame. It was this powerful, super flexible, and honestly pretty intuitive way to handle data that looks like a spreadsheet, but right inside your code. It felt like magic, and pretty much the entire data science community jumped on board. So why did it become the king? Well, in a word, simplicity. You could write one line of code, pd.readCSV, and you're already analyzing data. Plus, it has a gigantic community, which means if you have a question, someone has definitely already answered it online. And it plugs into basically everything, from plotting libraries to machine learning frameworks. But as data sets started to grow, from megabytes to gigabytes and beyond, the king's armor started to show a few cracks. That magical speed you felt on small data, it started to feel painfully slow when things got big. And you don't have to take my word for it. This quote from a developer over on Reddit just perfectly captures the frustration that so many people were feeling. When your script takes hours to run, you naturally start looking around for something better. So what's the technical problem here? Well, a lot of it comes down to this thing called the GIL, or the Global Interpreter Lock. The best way to think about it is like a gatekeeper inside Python that only lets one line of code run at a single time, even if your computer has a ton of processing cores ready and waiting to do work. For heavy-duty data tasks, this is a massive bottleneck. And this visual just lays out the mismatch perfectly. On one side, you've got traditional Pandas, which is fundamentally single-threaded. It's using just one of your CPU's cores. But on the other side, you've got your modern computer, which probably has 8, 12, maybe 16 cores just sitting there, bored, while Pandas chugs along on its one little track. But the story doesn't end there. The Pandas team knew this was a huge issue, and they fought back with a massive upgrade, Pandas 2.0. The king was about to learn some new and much, much faster tricks. Now, the really cool thing here was a fundamental change that happened under the hood. See, Pandas was originally built on top of NumPy. And NumPy is fantastic, but it was designed for numerical arrays, not the messy mixed-type columns you find in a typical data frame. With Pandas 2.0, they introduced Apache Arrow as a new backend. And Arrow was designed from the ground up for exactly this kind of data, which means way better memory use and a huge boost in speed. So while Pandas was busy evolving, a completely new challenger entered the ring. And this one was built from scratch with just one thing in mind: pure, raw speed. Let's meet Polars. Polars just took a completely different path. It's written in Rust, a language that's famous for performance, and lets it completely sidestep Python's GIL problem. That means it's multi-threaded right out of the box. It uses all of your computer's power automatically. It also uses that same high-performance Apache Arrow format natively. And it has a secret weapon called lazy execution. So what on earth is lazy execution? It sounds kind of bad, but it's actually genius. Think of it like this. Pandas is like a cook who reads step 1 of a recipe, does it, then reads step 2, and does that. Polars reads the entire recipe first. It looks at everything you want to do, figures out the smartest and most efficient way to combine all the steps, and then it starts cooking. It creates this super optimized plan and only runs it when you ask for the final result. It's a game changer. And the results really do speak for themselves. This benchmark from shuttle.dev used a dataset with over 12 million rows. You can see how Polars' lazy approach defers the cost of loading the data until it absolutely has to. But just look at the bottom line. The total time for the entire pipeline in Pandas was over a minute. In Polars, just 19 seconds. That's more than 3 times faster. And for a really common task, like just reading a big CSV file, the difference is even more dramatic. In this test, reading a 1 GB file took Pandas 10 full seconds. Polars did it in less than half a second. That's a 25x speed up. I mean, think about how many times you do that in a day. That time adds up fast. Okay, so Polars is ridiculously fast. Does that mean we just throw Pandas in the trash? Absolutely not. Now we get to the most important part: how to build your modern data toolkit. This slide just breaks it down perfectly. Look, if you're working with smaller data, let's say under 1 million rows, or you're just doing some quick exploratory analysis, Pandas is still your best friend. It's simple and its ecosystem is unmatched. But the second performance and memory become critical when you're wrestling with multi-gigabyte datasets. That's when you reach for Polars. It was built for exactly those heavy-duty situations. And that really is the key insight here. Polars isn't trying to replace Pandas. It's here to complement it. The way to think about it is, Pandas is your versatile Swiss Army knife, perfect for most everyday jobs. Polars is the high-performance power tool you bring out for the really tough, heavy-duty work. A modern data analyst needs both in their toolkit. And that leaves us with one last question for you to think about. We all know our datasets are only getting bigger and more complex. So the real question isn't Pandas or Polars. It's, is your toolkit evolving to keep up?